Good morning to you all. Welcome to the economics workshop. My name is Vusi. I will be with you in the next 2 days.
Sure.
I'm sure you have, your last workshop was accounts. How was it? Painful. Interesting.
Easy.
Easy.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Okay. I hope and trust that by the end of the workshop you would also find economics interesting, and you will be able to share with us your thoughts and your views about the direction of the South African economy, Africa in general, and global affairs. So I'm going to start by giving you a question, but you are not going to give me an answer now. You will give me an answer tomorrow. I think that will be our last discussion. Because we are going to discuss quite a lot of things, a lot of issues, and so by tomorrow, having taken all that into consideration, I would like to hear your views about what you think about African Renaissance. What is the state? You know, what direction should Africa pursue? Just briefly, you will note that currently there's been a shift towards looking to the east. China, right? And before that it was, anyone?
Europeans.
US.
To the west. US, Europe. Okay. And we are sitting here and we are saying this is Africa. Okay. So there is a history here of colonialization, and most African economies are now independent. Now this history, so if you look at the economic relationship that existed between the West and Africa, it's basically the same relationship that is now existing between Africa and China. China is also interested in our resources. Oil for infrastructure programs in Angola. It's the same thing. So my question that I want you to reflect on for tomorrow is, what then should Africa do? You know, what should Africa do in terms of development? So having taken all the concepts that we'll be discussing today and tomorrow, then let's hear your views. Because these are the views that will take Africa to the future, to chart a new economic path. Okay. Is that hard? Is it something that you can do? Hopefully. Remember, there is nothing wrong. There is no wrong answer. There is no right answer. Somebody said, if you want to get one single answer from an economist, then you need to cut both hands, because they would always say, this is what is going to happen, but on the other hand, this will also happen. So to get one answer, cut both hands, then you get one single answer. So there's no right or wrong there. It all depends with your argument. Okay. Now we'll also be going through this study guide. I want you all to turn through to page 6, where we have our learning outcomes. So by the end of this workshop, this is what we will have covered. A basic understanding of the principles of economics, how society is linked together. This big South African economy will be able to disintegrate it and look into its different components, and then aggregate it back together, and then talk about one economy. So we'll also talk about these different economic systems, inflation rate, the role of government in the economy, the role of the central bank in the economy, that's under monetary policy, the balance of payments, which talks also about exchange rates. And then lastly, we'll just have a discussion about what I've just asked you about, and issues of opinions, research, truth. Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone who has done economics before?
High school.
Just a little bit. High school, yeah, maybe. High school.
Okay. And well, economics is economics. If you, whether you've done it at high school, at tertiary, the basic principles are still the same. So, I'm sure today when you came in, you said we are going to do economics. So I want to hear from you, when you left and said today I'm attending an economics workshop, what came into your mind? What is this economics that you had in your mind that you are going to do? That, okay, this is economics. I think today it must cover this, or it must cover ABC.
I have no idea.
Yeah. But there must be something, that must say, okay, if I am doing finance, then if I don't hear anything about what?
I thought we can learn about graphs. Is it S-curves and demand curves?
Demand curve. Somebody's talking about demand curve.
The supply
So,
curve.
sorry?
The supply curve as well.
The supply curve. That's economics.
Consumer
I thought that
price index.
Price index. That's inflation.
Recession, depression.
Recession, depression. Okay. Yes.
Maybe also
Recession. When we talk of recession, we say, okay, there was the 2008-2009 recession. How has it affected the South African economy? How does it affect you as a consumer? Brandon?
BRICS? No, I thought we'd discuss a bit of BRICS in the global economies.
BRICS?
Trade. Trade.
Sorry?
Import and export.
Or imports and exports. Mm. Why do we have to export? Why do we have to import? Okay.
does labor fit anyway in economics? How either economic trends affect labor, or labor trends affect the economy?
Yes, labor does, because the activities in the labor market affect the general economy as a whole. It becomes also a specialized field in economics, and it becomes labor economics. But the activities of labor, the strikes, for example, they have an impact in the cost of goods and services in the country. That's inflationary. So we will be touching on all of that and more. Okay. So let's start by looking at economics as the formal definition. What is this economics? What is economics? Right. So we are saying economics is the study of how individuals and society choose to use the scarce resources that nature and previous generations have provided. Okay. So what we have is we have scarce resources, limited resources, but we have unlimited ones. Okay? What's the difference there? Bianca? Anyone?
So repeat the question for me, please.
Okay.
Vusi.
I'm saying we have scarce resources and unlimited ones. So the basic issue with economics is how do we utilize these scarce resources given these unlimited ones? Okay.
When you say scarce, are you talking about like platinum, gold, diamonds, coal?
The resources,
Materials that we are running short of.
land, labor, capital, it's resources, right? The government budget, for example. Government can only raise so much money, okay, through taxes and all these other revenue generating projects. But then, what about the needs for the fiscus? It has to spend on education, housing. Does the
Health.
government have enough money?
No.
It
She says
depends.
yes. Okay.
Just not using it.
Says they're just not using it correctly. Does the government have enough money? Period.
I think doesn't it also depend on a variety of other factors like
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
The money
I
should
think
be
that
there.
I think that we're lacking a lot of foreign investment,
Okay.
and we don't own much of our resources. Actually, our resources in our country. So I don't think we have enough money. We could have more. We could be wealthier if we did the right things and do the right things.
Okay.
I don't think we're capitalizing on all our resources,
Okay.
and that we've fallen behind in terms of agricultural, farming, that type of stuff.
Just turn to the back where you have this economics handout. Look at article number 9. We are talking about resources. Look at article number 9.
$200 to hire a glass.
Yes.
You gotta be kidding me. Really?
Now,
Which one is article number 9?
Article 4, Article 7.
article number 9.
Yeah, the last
Right. What does it say? Can somebody just read the first paragraph?
In some instances, service providers leased drinking glasses to the department for use during official function at the Presidential Guest House in Victoria, 200 rands each.
Okay. I think we can stop there. Now, we are talking about resources as scarce, right? So what is happening here? We were just saying that government doesn't have enough money, okay? But the same government is hiring a glass for 200 rand a glass. And just how many functions does the president have a year? So if for each function, they are hiring at 200 rand. What is the cost of buying that?
Oh, right.
10
Right from the
rands,
far end.
whatever.
It's like 40 rand, depending what type of glass you want. We get a crystal for
So-
40 rand.
Brandon, you want to say something?
No, I just said you could get a crystal glass for like 40 rand. purchase.
Even
But
cheaper.
then if they're not spending the money,
They're trimmed to the free.
then what happens to the people that's actually providing the service? So they need to spend the money, because then if a
Okay.
company makes more profits,
Okay.
they'll earn more taxes, government.
There's a point from Sasha.
Yeah,
She
but all
says
he's doing is driving
200
up
rand
costs.
is right, you know. Let them spend 200 rand.
It's true.
It's business. The profit, somebody will be able to hire someone.
But we have to manage the resources that we have as a country in such a way that there can be a balance between demand and supply.
Okay.
Because if you have that imbalance, then it will appear as if we do not have adequate resources in the economy, you know, to
Okay.
meet the needs of or the wants of the country.
Okay.
So I think the critical thing is having that balance.
Let me just say, okay, that's about 60,000 rand for a presidential function. So if we assume probably what? He has about 10 a year. That's how much?
600,000.
At last,
The 600,000 on
For
classes.
glasses.
Just keeping in mind that the glass costs 30 bucks. It's only 200 rand, and the only tax
Okay.
he's getting back on it is 14%. So he's actually wasting a huge amount of money
Yeah.
to get one oak to make a glass for you. I think that's pretty ridiculous.
So if you say glasses are expensive, and then, okay, maybe I buy glasses for 100,000 rand, then what can you do with the other 500,000?
Spend it on booze.
Bursaries.
So what is wrong with South African economy?
It's management.
Sorry?
It's
Corrupted.
management. The way they manage the resources, that's the problem, big problem.
Anyone with a different view?
Accountability.
Accountability.
Greed.
I think
Greed and corruption.
Okay. So this is just on a small scale in terms of just classes. Now imagine what is happening throughout the whole country. How much money will be? You are mentioning what? 3.6 billion.
I'm seeing it.
public goods.
Paragraph 3.
So that's quite a lot. So in economics, we then want to find ways of how best then we utilize these resources. Because once that 500,000 is gone, it's gone, you know. I would then say, okay, probably for me the best way is to, I would invest that money in another, you know, in infrastructure, for example. Okay. So economics is a social science. It is a social science in that it you study the behavior of society. So the behavior of individuals, when aggregated together, they become the behavior of the society. Okay. An example is how does Statistics South Africa measure inflation? You know, do they ask everyone in the country?
No.
What do they do?
Don't they look at different items that
Like at the consumer price index.
that people buy over a period of time? You know, basically I'm not sure if it's items that are necessities for people to use on a daily basis, and then from there they aggregate that into percentages and then come with inflation rates.
Sorry, before I forget, please quickly circulate this. That's
Is it not measured perhaps on, like what you said earlier, the supply and demand?
just saying. Okay. It's measured by a representative of What they do is they take a basket of goods that represent an average South African and then measure the prices of those goods over a period of time and look at what happens to those prices. Okay. So what is an average South African? What goods will be in the basket of an average South African? Will it be alcohol? Will it be sushi? Will it be maize meal?
Bread, milk,
Bread, milk?
chicken.
I'm sure, isn't there something like 600 items?
Yeah.
I don't think it's just a basket. I think it's like, isn't there like 600 items
They take a basket.
in the
What?
consumer price index?
Yes, they take a basket, what they believe to be, on average, this is representative enough, and then just measure those prices. So, my point there was that it is a social science in that it is measuring the behavior of society. Now, society that we are talking about, it is firms, government, everyone. We are part of society. Okay. We will go through that later using your pre-work, how key elements in the society fit together to make this whole economy. Okay. So why do we study economics? One, it's a way of thinking. Okay? It's a way of thinking. Now, we have discussed opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is, let me just ask you, if you were not here today, Bianca, where would you be? At work. Okay. So your opportunity cost is the next best foregone alternative. So in other words, if on a Saturday you are watching a game of soccer,
Yeah, probably.
and you could be working, and on that day you could have made 500 rand, then the opportunity cost of watching soccer would be 500 rand. So in other words, what's the next best thing that we could have done with the 200 rand for a class? So economics then makes us think in terms of opportunity cost, to have that kind of thinking. If you look at page 33, if you look at page 33, where there is the production possibility curve. The production possibility curve looks at when you've got two resources as a country. Assume you've got two resources, A and B. How best do you utilize them? You could either produce A or produce B, right? Or you could produce combinations of A and B, okay? So that curve also illustrates the opportunity cost concept in that when you produce all of A, you forego all of B. You produce all of B, you forego all of A. Okay. But we will come back to that later. Let's just look at why we study economics. We will come back to that. Is that fine? Is that fine? Okay. We'll come back. Okay. Okay. Marginalism, the concept of additional cost. When we are in class and we say to ourselves, what is the cost of having one more participant in class? That's the concept of marginalism. Okay? So if you're in production, you say, what is the cost of us producing one extra unit? Okay. sunk costs. If you are going to, for example, what's this, to prospect for oil in the Western Cape, you spend a year or two and you don't find any oil. Will you recover the money that you will have spent? You won't. So these are the issues that. So economics makes us have that kind of thinking. You know. Okay. Shall I? Okay. Efficient markets, which is about profit opportunities. So markets would self-regulate and resources automatically will be directed towards places where there are profit opportunities. So that's what that is about. No free lunch. Okay. 2, why we study economics. Said 1, it's a way of thinking. 2, to understand society. Why is this happening? Okay. 3, to understand global affairs. Can somebody discuss what that part means there? An iPod as global value. What do you understand by that?
So it's obviously that it's, if I read that, it's made in many countries, so they all profit from making the iPod.
Yeah. That's what it is. Globalization, right? Now, where is this concept developed? Where was it developed?
The US.
In the US. Where is it manufactured?
China.
Is it China only?
Different countries.
Different countries. Now, what is the benefit to the US?
Cost.
Reduced labor
Yes.
costs.
Labor cost.
So it's cost. Why is it not being manufactured in the US?
Labor is costly.
It's costly labor in the US.
So you'll be able to buy it in. So the US market will be able now to buy it at a cheaper price than if it was manufactured in the US. But what is happening to China? China's economy is also getting a boost from manufacturing this product, because you have a factory that is opened, you have a factory that is employing people, you have a factory that is contributing to that country's GDP. So this is the trend that we are also that we are seeing, you know, in concepts that have been developed by the US. Product is developed in the US, and then it is manufactured in the developing world, and then the US becomes an importer of that same product.
The only problem with that is that the Chinese don't care about, or the East doesn't really care about, what's the word I'm looking for?
Working conditions.
Intelligent, what? No. Intellectual property. So all
Intellectual
they'll do is call
property
it,
rights.
an e-pod, and then
Okay.
destroy it, distribute it to the rest of the world, and the Americans not making money.
A very good point. But if you look at it, okay, if you look at it, China has been growing at over 8% for the past 30 years. But what is there in China? No respect for intellectual and property rights.
No.
One-party state.
Communism.
What else? All these
Poor labor conditions.
poor labor conditions, right?
Child
Okay.
labor.
Now let's look at the West, which takes us back to that initial question. What is happening here? Democracy, what? Respect for property rights,
Free market system.
market systems. Okay. But what is happening here? China has grown to an extent now that it is the second largest economy in the world. And it is now a question of when it will overcome the US to become the largest economy in the world. But you've got two totally different systems.
It's also interesting that quite a number of companies that are listed in the JSE, not JSE, New York Stock Exchange are also now owned by the Chinese companies and the Chinese government also. I'm not sure of the percentages, but I've read that, like for an example, what is this bank? Citibank. There's a bank called Citibank, yeah, Citibank.
Yes.
I think now Bank of China, or one of the banks in China, holds a substantial stake in Citibank. And Citibank itself is also a global bank, you know, so those dynamics are also interesting.
Yeah. I mean, China has been exporting quite a lot to the US. So China has accumulated quite a lot of reserves that it has invested in buying US bills, US bonds. You see. So China is heavily invested in the US at the same time. But you've got two totally different systems, which is why I was saying tomorrow, having looked at that, two totally different systems. It's working for the US, isn't it? It's working for China. So what will then work for Africa? That's what the question is. You know. Okay. 4, to be an informed citizen. Now remember, economics, what we are discussing is not politics here. We are discussing economics. Whether you agree with the government of the day or you don't is not relevant here. The issue is it making economic sense? This is what it is about. Okay. So when you study economics, you become an informed citizen. And an informed citizen participates in their country's development through what? By using their voting power. Okay. Do you any questions?
I just think most of our citizens are not informed then.
Says most of the citizens are not informed. Like, what do you mean?
Depends on the class.
Sorry.
It depends on the class that you're referring to. And I do agree with but I would say that if you classify, I mean, you've got the middle class and the poor, and I think mostly the class where people are not informed is the poor. You know. And those are people that continue to vote the ANC into power.
Is that so?
That's an opinion.
That's an opinion, eh? Okay.
I don't know, I support that opinion.
That's an opinion.
Really. Because
Not a,
it's an opinion, but it is majority.
Because
They don't have an understanding of the 200 rand a glass. I suppose I could win an election just showing them that.
I wouldn't get on that vendor's list.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's also a lot of grants, eh?
Yeah.
Grants that the poor are getting.
There could be more, eh?
Say again?
There could actually be more.
Yeah, that's another way of looking at it.
I
But,
think they don't
Vusi-
understand it.
yes.
I think that they're very smart on this matter.
Pardon?
Back of the glass thing. But
Okay.
they completely understand. I mean, they're very educated in what they're doing, and they obviously choosing the suppliers. Sometimes it is corruption in choosing the vendors, but they have a budget on those things. They know what they're doing and why they're doing it.
It's corruption.
No,
You know what we're doing?
Is it the right thing? Is it the right thing? We wouldn't consider it, no. But I still think that they, because if I look at like the skills levy and stuff like that, and why companies, they actually waste money on certain programs, and they pay these large amounts of quotes. They choose the highest quote for a specific reason, not necessarily for the reputation.
Connection somewhere.
But the
There's a
question,
connection somewhere.
yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting.
I'm just intrigued that between economics and politics, which one is superior in influence, you know? Because either one will either influence the other, you know, in driving the future of society.
Yeah, that's very true. What do others say about that?
I don't know. I would answer that and say I think
What takes precedence in
which
such
one takes precedence
situations?
would be which one you understand the most. For you personally, in my personal opinion, if I understood economics, that's what I would base my decisions on. If I understood politics, I would probably base my decisions based on what I understand about politics. Really. So I think they're both influential. It just depends how you understand it yourself, I think.
So they both have a role to play. Yeah? And if you're in office, you definitely do anything that would prolong your power and stay.
Yep.
Yeah? Whether that economic policy is good or bad.
Yeah.
You know, we have seen that in
Zimbabwe also.
yeah, that's a good example. You know, it doesn't mean that the president actually has a master's degree in economics, but what he does is put economics at the back and be involved in politics. So to him, whenever the two clash, politics takes center stage.
He does have.
It does. So does Thabo Mbeki.
Yeah, Thabo is, yeah.
You know.
What does he have?
Masters Robert Mugabe, Masters in economics.
Did he buy it?